whatever happened in the past does not mean that you have to remain that same person that you were in the past. If somebody has devalued, belittled, really made you feel like an option, really disrespected you in any way, shape or form, it is now on them to correct that situation, to fix that situation, okay? This is why it's so important sometimes for you to just disregard the labels of connections. You really need to, because the point of all of it is for you to truly understand self-respect, for you to truly learn to access that love, that divine love in your heart for yourself first and foremost, which is how you can then access it for others, right? It's for you to align with your divine purpose. Yeah, that is the point. And the way that you do that is you recognize the difference between being in your sovereign power versus being mistreated. Yeah, on a higher level, you can understand anyone on any kind of journey. You can understand that everybody accesses their journey at the right time in the right way to teach them what they need to for their soul expansion moving forwards, right? That's the case for everybody, no matter what kind of connection they're in or anything. So it's just really important to remember that when it comes to kind of allowing yourself to be treated a certain way because, this person's your twin flame or your divine person, etc., they cannot step into that divine self if you just excuse their behaviors, if they haven't yet taken accountability, right, and really shown up in that way. There is something here about somebody chose a third-party situation, one that was led very much by a very wounded, unhealed kind of sacral chakra. This sacral chakra is something that they held and stored a lot of trauma in from a very young age, something they hadn't addressed. Okay, and this is kind of the cyclic nature of what they were just allowing themselves to repeat, in their connections, in their relationships. So when they met you, or depending on who's watching this right now, because I think it could be both or either, this is how they were triggered, right? And they moved towards you in the way that they know how to move towards anyone in their past, but you're different in that you didn't respond in the same way. So they went back to kind of where, sometimes the shadow becomes the comfort, because actually that's what you've always known since a young age, right? Queen of Swords. However, Eight of Cups at the bottom of the deck. This is something that they have been walking away from. Justice, the Lovers, King of Pentacles, the Emperor. Yes, divine masculine energy. This was a karmic connection that they needed to process through, okay? And I have a feeling that you, divine feminine, is also connected to this karmic connection in some way, shape or form, especially if they keep appearing in your life in some way, shape or form, signs, etc. Someone's had to someone's retreated. This divine masculine energy retreated from the connection with the divine feminine because, like I say, they were in a really wounded space. But what they didn't, I don't even know if they realized it at the time, but they triggered the insecurities of the divine feminine on a whole new level, truly. And yes, it was already something within her that needed to be cleared through, absolutely. However, from what I'm getting so far, this isn't something that they've tried to correct because they've had way too much internal healing that they needed to do. Okay. And in the same way, it's giving the divine feminine the space to become who she needed to be, right? However, this is not someone who can expect, the divine feminine here is not obliged to kind of operate from, being a walking mat, etc. Everything's fine. Quite the opposite. If you're in your power, if you're in your self-respect, you need to be treated and received accordingly. Yeah. So if somebody wants to come forward, then this is what this is feeling like. If you're somebody who feels like they don't need to forgive somebody because they're under a certain label, again, the truth is, okay, now I just want to say before I say this, tarot is the truth that is already existing inside you, okay? So if you feel like, either this just doesn't resonate with you, then this particular reading may not be for you, may not be a message for you, okay? There might be some teachings in here for you, which is fine. But the message that's coming through is that if you find it, you know, unnecessary to forgive somebody, it's very likely that in your life, your parents specifically, you hold something within you. You can't even see it, some kind of resentment or anger or something like that. Something suppressed anyway, that you've kind of excused, right? You've allowed yourself to kind of excuse the forgiveness for what happened to you as a child, where you really needed love and protection, which is why now you allow yourself to excuse other people to treat you less than what you deserve. Because first and foremost, you need to treat yourself accordingly. You need to recognize who and what hasn't treated you in the way that you deserve from a very young age. It might also be the other way around, that you excuse your own behaviors. This divine feminine energy has a lot of light. You attract a lot, okay? You know, especially as you go through life, there's a lot of kind of experience, life experience, I suppose, that you add to your backpack or whatever. And you get to the point where there's a lot that you just don't want to carry anymore. So you release it. However, that does not excuse moving forwards what happens, including mistreatment or treatment that just hasn't been handled correctly, justice has not been brought to. 8 of Wands. You are guarded, however. Guarded. Ooh, I was going to say you are guided to not be guarded. This is a connection that's coming through that has a lot of passion in it. However, you're also, divine feminine is also very aware. She's surrendered to this. She understands the journey, right? But there's kind of this difference between not allowing yourself to just kind of releasing any resentment within your soul. Yeah, that doesn't mean you allow someone back in, especially not if they're just coming through with false promises or illusionary kind of rose tinted glasses energy, right? That's the King of Cups, Death, Knight of Cups. So that suggests somebody has been transforming. They're no longer coming through with this teenager kind of illusionary romantic story in their mind, you know, and then just running away when they want to. So King of Cups is more stable, right? So there's more like emotional stability here, which is a good sign, a very good sign. They've clearly been doing some work whilst they've been away, because it does feel like it's been a while. I just keep hearing that they haven't taken accountability, which basically means they haven't tried to fix this situation with you. And it could be for various reasons. It could be, unfortunately, you know, I always say one of the worst things you can do is bring external energies and influences and voices that aren't professionals, you know, whatever professional means these days, into your connection, truly, because there's going to be too many opinions. This is why it's so important for you to connect with yourself, find your inner alignment. Your inner voice is your highest knowing, your connection to divine. You know exactly what to do, Tower. There's a couple of messages coming through here for me. There's been a Tower with this this karmic connection, absolutely. And this was it needed to kind of awaken somebody's judgment. It's like they were asleep. This is what I'm hearing. They were asleep, the lovers again. You know, especially when it came to love, it's like they weren't actually accessing their truth. And I just feel like this has been so slow moving is what I'm hearing, but divine timing, right? The wheel, things are changing. They're understanding on a much more, I think, again, that emotionally stable level. They're understanding kind of what stability is, what long term is, okay? We've got King and Queen and Pentacles at the bottom of the deck there as well. So, I just feel like there's a lot in this energy, and it all comes down to the fact that somebody was running off their wounds as a child, right? And that, you know what, you can have compassion towards that. You can hold that unconditional love, knowing that they've had to heal through those traumas. That's deep, but so have you. You've had your traumas to heal through as well, okay? And also, that doesn't mean that you allow them, excuse them to mistreat you, you know. I mean, what I was hearing there, you know, the devaluing, the making you feel like an option, all these things. Abandonment is big here, making you just, yes, okay, you know, ultimately that already existed within you, otherwise you would have just been like, okay, no, that's not for me, move on, right? But at the same time, if they had it within themselves to treat you in that way, that needs to be corrected, right? It does look like they've been healing through that, but you wouldn't know this. You've been blinded to this. Look at that 8 of Swords. You don't know, because it's with the Temperance card. It's been a long time. But I will say this, you are shining in their eyes. The more they're connecting to their soul, the more they're connecting to you, ultimately, of course. but that's because you have been putting in the work too. So this is somebody who gets it. 4 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. You understand your journey, but knowing that it's your journey, it's your alignment with yourself, your sort of 10 of Pentacles, your absolute divine abundance that's within you, right? So that's really beautiful, because that's that inner union you're really coming into. You're understanding self-respect. 6 of Swords. You've been journeying through your own karmic cycles as well, right? There's a transition taking place. I will say this. I think that's the energy of this connection. It's kind of going from wounded to more healed is what I'm feeling. But let's just find out, okay? The Hermit. Yeah, someone, again, they have not, King of Cups at the bottom, they have not spoken to you for a very long time, but they also haven't spoken to you about what's been happening. You know, the energies they allow themselves to linger in, or I do feel like, I was just going to say, and it's confirmation, the High Priestess, I do feel like you have a feeling about all of this. Which is another reason why it's so important that they come through without kind of the masks and the illusions. But it's also another reason why they might fear coming towards you. 7 of Swords, they know they've done deception. This is heavily feeling like they've brought you into a third party situation or karmic situation, or maybe they were, I'm going to say this, right? Maybe they were kind of entering the scene with whatever that is whilst you were still in the picture, if that makes sense. So it's like it became too many cups is what I've heard there. 9 of Wands, okay? 9 of Cups and 9 of Wands. I think that the Divine Feminine, during this kind of retreat mode, you've been really stepping into your kind of High Priestess. Yeah, you've been accessing your oracle. You've been understanding things from a higher level, and that's part of your divine purpose here. You're here to help people, right? You're here to, you know, shine your light, truly, because the world needs it. That's part of your divine purpose, and that's beautiful. That's what you need to be connecting with, because you're understanding your worth now, right? You're understanding that actually, of course, that's what I'm here to do. And you're allowing that. You're surrendering to divine, truly. But again, there's this need to, I feel like, you know, are you still holding on to the hurts and pains that you've just not addressed when it comes to this divine masculine energy? Or are you just over it? You know what I mean? There's a difference, you know. Yes, you want to move forwards, but also there's this energy with this 9 of Swords. It's like it still plays on your mind often. Yeah, there's it's like you have this beautiful new perspective, and then these tests come through, and your mind can like kind of make you your own prisoner. But I do think that you're very beautifully learning this. You're cycling through this with this 9 of these 2 9s and this wheel. You're really understanding how to close out those cycles now, because you're recognizing, hold on, what makes me happy, what makes me feel fulfilled, who and what, right? 6 of Wands, there's something about success that's big here for you, which is really beautiful. And I think it's to do with that light. But you just need to, I think there's something about releasing the stresses of the mind, very independent energy. God, all the 9s are on the table. 10 of Pentacles. I was going to say the 10 of Cups, and then the 10 of Pentacles I just saw at the bottom of the deck. The Devil. Do you know something about that? I feel like you know exactly. I think that you just see things very clearly. You know what's pulling you down into this energy, and you have reclaimed your power, your energy, whether it's lustful energies, whether it's just unhealthy habits within yourself, right? And you can see through the masks of illusion, which is exactly why there's something about you being a bit more, these boundaries are one thing, but being guarded is kind of, you're not allowing someone to come through in their energy and speak their truth, right? And that's what they need. There is something about new information coming your way that's going to help you to release and detach from the past now, and to really move on from it, if that makes sense. But it's going to take a transitionary period. Release your X at the bottom of the deck there as well, okay? So I think that maybe you're holding on to the cords of the past. You knew there was this karmic, pay attention to the red flags. You knew there was a karmic energy in the mix, right? But you don't know what's been happening with that since, is what's coming through. There's been a real lack of communication. Okay, attraction, passion, yeah, running off this kind of spark and fire. It can be a beautiful thing. Like I said, there's a lot of kind of getting that. You do have a lot of passion, but honeymoon. There's this need to recognize what's driving. Yeah, what's driving these heart-to-heart conversations and reconciliation. I think there's just this need for finding the space and time that allows and it's got to be in divine timing. This is why it's kind of one of those things where it's happening as and when it needs to, because you'll both be ready when it comes, right? In a sense that either you're going to have to learn another lesson, or you're going to have been learning enough lessons to recognize wedding, how to do this differently this time. So you've got honeymoon and wedding. That does feel like high level commitment energies, but I also feel like this could be something you're learning more about from somebody, the truth about kind of maybe this is what they now want, whereas before they didn't, before they were running off that, wounded energy, separation, confirmation. And then we have, it is safe for you to love, release your ex. Okay, I feel like the ex energies are being, like I said before, they were walked away from, right? They're being released. So if you're concerned that, well, is that still a thing? This is confirmation, it's safe, right? New love, see? There's a new love now. Deception. You've been hurt and lied to. Somebody really needs to come through correct. And, they shouldn't expect you to just absolutely, just like this, be all this in your compassionate nature and everything. They're going to need to allow you, worth waiting for. I feel like it's going to be the other way around now. They're going to need to allow you the time, truly. And if they're too scared to come forward, yes, it's, it can be really sad when someone's had such trauma from a young age that the fear is in their soul when it comes to love. It's really, really sad. But at the same time, like I said from the very beginning, they're not that person anymore. They're not that child anymore. This is something they need to heal through. They need to allow themselves to heal through. Otherwise, I'll just be carrying this burden, and they know what that's like. So now it's time for you. I'm just, as I said that, children, confirmation. Now it's time for you to really, I feel like, especially on an energetic and emotional level, to set the scene, divine feminine. Okay, give your relationship a chance. I do think that you both want to give this a chance. It's just about correcting what's gone, what just happened in a way that was hurtful, romantic feelings. You both have feelings, you really do, for each other. But there's just something about honouring the truth now, right? You deserve love. There are a lot of feelings here, and I feel like someone's actually exploring these now, finally, whereas before, I'm not sure they did. Okay, this is more about closing out old cycles right now, completion. This is what this energy is coming through as, right? Closing, healing, but balancing out the karma is what's coming through, okay? Righting wrongs, yeah? And knowing your worth, exactly. Nothing is yet set in stone. There's no point about kind of making things up in your mind. It's about what's happening in the reality. Yes, on a higher level, you know what's going on, right? But somebody needs to act accordingly in the physical. Both of you do. Confidence is your key to success. I feel like, that's like for me, that's giving divine masculine energy when it comes to them taking action. Because like I say, it feels like they've got a lot of trauma in their being, right? They've had a lot of trauma in their being. Which makes them tell themselves a lot of different stories that aren't true, and has stopped them from exploring these feelings that they're now finally feeling through, okay? Bring love into the situation, okay? Again, it's that being in that compassionate nature. What do you need to release? Whilst understanding, step out of your comfort zone, whilst understanding that boundaries are needed. New romantic cycle begins. Boundaries are so needed. I think that both of you are going to have to step out your comfort zone to be so vulnerably true when it comes to your emotions, because I feel like this particular collective that I'm reading for, neither of you are very good at talking your truth in terms of your emotions when it comes to true face-to-face. Yeah, you might do it in one way or another, but when you're having that conversation, this is where you're going to need to step out of the comfort zone and be seeing your vulnerability. If divine feminine, you're going to kind of lead that, truly. You're going to set the scene for that. Yeah, and I'm not just talking in the physical, the way you are. I mean, the divine masculine needs to come forward. From what I'm seeing here, they didn't act accordingly, right? So they need to come forwards selflessly. But on an energetic level, you need to already be at that space where you are true to your emotions. You're not guarded to your emotions. But you are bringing a lot of logic into this situation. I will say this. Surrender to the divine. Again, it's kind of like everything's unfolding the way it needs to be. Of course it is. We know this, right? But now it's kind of, don't let the past hold you back. When it comes into your physical reality, work through your fears. There's going to be some things that come through. So what I'm saying there is this need to not become suddenly codependent again. That was your past version of you based on what happened in the past, yeah? So it's kind of like not just attaching to someone or something. in fear that, they're going to abandon again, or that rejection, you're going to be feeling all those triggered feelings again. That's something that you will have closed through, but it'll come up again just to see whether there's any remnants of that within your being, right? Expect powerful change. When the divine masculine comes forward with these kind of communication energy that's coming through here, it's really now up to you, divine feminine, to see this as your beautiful opportunity to close out that past, to get that kind of align with each other. But it does mean you both have to take accountability for whatever happened, right? And here is what I'm seeing, is that there's a lot that divine masculine hasn't told you, even though part of you already knows with that energy that was coming through, but also they haven't, really taken it upon themselves to prove to you that they've changed in terms of how they would treat you or treat anyone, and more importantly treat themselves, because that's what it all comes down to. That's how they've been treating themselves. A new romantic cycle begins. Lovely. Meditate and contemplate. And this is the thing, don't react. Yeah, it's not about impulsive reaction. I don't think you will, but I also feel like you're going to be a bit guarded with your communication, is what's coming through here, okay? There's something about this really is coming into the physical now. So it's about how can you actually honour that practically. Okay, how can you honour your heart's truth practically? Because actually these feelings are real, but they can't just be run off of impulse. There needs to be this strong foundation in place, and that's this opportunity that's coming through that you're going to be able to create, okay? Go forward fearlessly. Let go of fear now. And this beautiful, decide to be happy now, okay? That's really interesting, because let go of fear now and decide to be happy now. There's something about very present, new beginnings and a fresh start. This is a very present energy, is what I'm getting here. Someone's third eye is opening, and I'm seeing that to be the divine masculine energy, okay? This is your life's purpose, very, very much connected to, if you're on the divine journey especially, this is a massive part of what you're meant to be doing here, to find your own inner alignment, right? To really bring your gifts here to earth. That's a big part of your reason, right? Believe and trust. Everyone's journey is so unique and different. You really need to tap into yourself to know your truth. Yeah. Spend time outdoors. There's something about that actually recently, energy healing work. Kind of, I think don't be too much of that hermit energy that was coming through, because you're actually without realising, you're putting up walls on an energetic level. You're not allowing in what wants to come through, okay? God is in charge. Once again, surrender to the divine. There's a higher purpose, and it's unfolding right now. Be gentle with yourself. It's okay to feel your feelings. Like I said from the very beginning, if somebody's made you feel in all those different ways, yes, there's been a cycle, there's been lots of cycles you have to heal through, but it's understandable that you're going to be a bit afraid about things happening again, even though like deep down that you can trust somebody or whatever. Somebody still needs to show up correctly, and you need to be in your truth as well, okay? This situation is already resolved. Take time making this decision, okay? So somebody does want to come forwards here. Divine Feminine, you will have been working really beautifully through your heart space in order for this Divine Masculine now to be seeing from here, right? Which is saying something, okay? There is something about Mother Winds coming through as well, okay? I will say this as well. There's this energy kind of this Divine Masculine feeling like this is some kind of karma they need to correct. They need to be balanced with this situation. So that's kind of the driving force right now, which is really, it's like they've cut off the kind of negative pulls on the energy is what's happening. There is really like a new start coming, moving forwards, but there's just this need to complete this cycle that you two still have in order to go from that Nine of Wands energy into this Nine of Cups. And something, if you look on here, they're both having really deep and intimate conversations in these cards, and I think that's what is needed: the truth, the vulnerability, understanding what you've been processing and healing through, and that's why it's important to stay in your heart space, but also to recognize your boundaries, how you deserve and want to be treated, but don't let that be fear stopping you from what your heart truly does desire, and actually what is now in your divine alignment, okay? Divine Feminines, don't act like you're okay if you're not. Otherwise, how can you truly reconciliate, okay? Because that does feel like the energy here. Divine Masculines, they've been really regretful over their indecision in the past and how they've allowed their kind of Knight of Wands energy, the way they've been treating themselves again, and that sacred, passionate energy that they truly have, that you two share actually, and hasn't been kind of directed in the right way, the right channel. And this is something they've been really healing through, and they are kind of finding strength within themselves with this now, right, to close this out so that they can come back to you truly. But again, you can't just the more you just allow the lack of accountability and all these kind of things, and especially when you know the truth, to the degree that you do, I'm seeing the high priestess for a reason as you, okay, then the more you're not allowing them to step into their healed divine self, and the more you're preventing yourself from stepping up too, okay. So it's kind of like this is how you help each other truly, but also that means you choose yourself always. So there is a new start moving forwards, but right about now there's a lot of kind of completions taking place, and you have a completion to take to close. You have a completion together that needs to take place, okay. Wow, tongue-tied. There is something about spirit baby very much making itself present to both of you, actually. And also there could have been something to do with a child. Maybe it was between you two, but it could have been to do with this kind of X energy, this karmic energy that's being kind of healed through and cleared through, okay. And this is something that's going to come to light for you, okay. So you're going to understand really each other's journeys, but I feel like a lot of unsaid in terms of what's been happening in their life is from the divine masculine, which makes sense because it's kind of like, I'm hearing the world shattered, right? There was a lot of illusion they were living in. But as for the divine feminine, I think that you've just been very guided through your emotions. This divine masculine has no idea how you're feeling, truthfully. In terms of on the outside, okay, because within, when you tap in, I think you both have all these like attraction, romantic feelings. Like there's a lot here, heart to heart, right? Passion. Whew. There's going to be a lot to say, I can tell, okay. Let me know if this reading was for you. Sending so much love.